Ready? Are we live?
We are live.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Open Data Journeys. BetaNYC is launching our Open Data Journey program today with a journey on motor vehicle collisions and safe streets. We're recording this and are going to post it on YouTube at the end so that these videos are available to you in the future. I just mentioned it, but our Open Data Journeys are a way for us to share what our curriculum does in classes, which is we're taking our journeys that we take people through on classes and sort of creating them into bite-sized videos that people can then use to get an idea of how they can use open data, how they can access different civic tech tools and explore issues in their community. So the idea is to present different data sets, weaknesses or different civic tech tools, highlight some of the weaknesses and strengths of different tools, and have a conversation about, data, tools, and issues through Open Data Journeys. So it is 12:07. We're going to have a quick welcome from Councilmember Kaylos, who's helping us kick these off, our Open Data Journeys. We're really excited to have you here. After that, we'll quickly introduce you to the topic of today, and then Gabby, Ameen, and Onedeige are going to walk you through their process for answering a few different questions about collisions and vehicle traffic in New York City. We'll have a quick question and answer at the end, and then we will finish up. So welcome to our co-hosts, Gabby Langston, Ameen Alhubaishi, and Onedeige James, and I'm your other co-host, Kate Nicholson, and with me is is Noel Hidalgo. I also see some past fellows. Stephanie, shout out to you. I think that's all I see on the screen. So without further ado, welcome Councilmember Ben Kaylos.
Thank you very much. I'm Councilmember Ben Kaylos. I had a safari hat, but my daughter said that I needed to give it to the teddy bear. You may overhear her if you're wearing headphones. It might be a good time to take them off and go on speaker, just because with the new normal, we are sharing our spaces and it can get loud in this apartment. If you don't already know me, I'm a free and open source software developer who got elected to the city council, and I can be reached on pretty much every social media platform at Ben Kaylos. I am so excited for this data journey and to see more data journeys throughout our moving forward. I would really like to see a city government that uses a data-driven, evidence-based approach to policymaking. And one of the bars to that is, as an elected official, I don't know very many others who have the technical skills. I don't even know very many city staff who have the technical skills to dive into the open data portal, go into even the collision data, which is something that I actually do every year as we do our street safety program, to look at the data and see if things are actually working. So I think that programs like this are incredibly important. In my district, we do a bike safety program. The interventions that we do include education, where we do education in our public schools. We actually do bike safety courses with Bike New York, and this is all pre-pandemic, of course, in our local bike shops. We even do a partnership with City Bike, where we train people in City Bike on how to ride safely in our streets in exchange for a free 1 month on an annual or a free day pass. We also distribute helmets, lights, vests, and bells to delivery workers, as well as helmets to everyone. We've added bike infrastructure, including a bike lane on Second. We've actually tripled the bike infrastructure. You can now cross the Queensboro Bridge with a dedicated bike lane, but these are all things we've done. But the big question is, it may feel good, we may be doing the right thing, but is it actually working? And we've been able to look at collision data, and I hope we'll learn more today. But at least for my district, what I can say is pedestrian and vehicle collisions are down with the new bike lanes and infrastructure and education programs. And collisions between pedestrians and bikes are also down. The one thing that I'm still disappointed on, I'm hoping we can figure this out, and I'll challenge you in terms of the data, is we see that the bike collisions with cars, which is perhaps the most deadly thing for somebody riding a bike, is flat. So our hope is that given the fact that biking has actually increased in my district by 200%, that represents a net positive, but we do need to focus on that. And I will just give a quick shout out and just thank you to a lot of the folks who have been organizing, including Kate, thank you for hosting today, and Noel Hidalgo, who has been doing tremendous work for BetaNYC, but I will also say he wears another hat in addition to the safari hat in terms of being a strong advocate for bike safety. So I'm looking forward to learning more about the collisions, and I'm also hoping that we can do more and do it from a data-driven approach. So thank you, and let's keep up the work. And just one last plug, as we're dealing with the pandemic, we're looking at data to keep us healthy. And another disease that's out there is Legionnaire's disease, which can actually also look a lot like coronavirus. And so I'm going to be putting in a data assistance request, a radar request with BetaNYC right now for assistance checking on compliance with our inspection requirements using our city and state data. So hope other folks will do so as well, and that we can partner to use our city's data to keep people safe and healthy and make better decisions. And my daughter couldn't be more excited.
Hooray! I agree. It's really exciting. We have our radar request form, and you all should be as excited to use it and get our support. Thank you so much, Councilmember. It's great to have that introduction, and shout out to Open Data in New York City. We really need to use it in a lot more ways so that we can learn more about our city and empower people to have a decision have a say in the decisions that are made. So without further ado, let's get informed. Let's learn how we can use open data to understand motor vehicle collisions and safe streets. So in today's data journey, we will be exploring trends in traffic collisions. And some of the questions that Gabby, Onedeige, and Ameen will be answering are how many are occurring, how many traffic collisions are occurring in a specific location? Can they find a hotspot and dig a bit more into that location and find out when they're taking place, what type of vehicles are involved, how many are taking place in a certain date range, and furthermore, can you look at how the data is represented in two different tools and ask questions about why it might be represented in different ways? What can we learn about how we manage data in the city by seeing how seeing two different tools side by side and how they report traffic collisions? And then even further, what other data sets are relevant to this? Can we use other data sets that the city has in the New York City data portal to find out, why collisions might be taking place? And what we'll be using for that is 311 data. So what sort of complaints in communities are people making that might relate to collisions? And is that sort of, fodder for a hypothesis about why collisions are taking place? And is it something worth investigating? Whoops, forgot to put the links, but we are going to be exploring 3 different data sets today. One of them is traffic collision data that is reported by the Department of Transportation. Another is injury and fatality collision data reported and managed by the New York City Police Department. And the third is the New York City 311 data set. So these are the 3 data sets that we're harnessing. And there's 3 tools that we'll be using that harness these data sets to give the public an ability to analyze that data. So Vision Zero Map, Crashmapper, and Boardstat. And there's 3 sort of steps that we'll be taking, and Gabby, Ameen, and Onedeige will each be taking you through these steps. So I'm going to let them get started and present their steps to you. So without further ado, Gabrielle, or Gabby Langston, who was our fellow all throughout last year, and this month was hired on as an Apprentice, which is a old but new program that BetaNYC is formally launching today, or in this month. And we're excited about bringing people that have been working with us for the past year on to continue working with us. So Gabby, the floor is yours. And I will be controlling the slides for you. So just nudge me when you need to.
Alrighty, will do. Yes, thank you so much, Kate, and good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you here today, and thank you for being here. I will be speaking about the Vision Zero map. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so once you log onto the Vision Zero map website, this is the interface you will encounter. But before we dive into details about how to navigate through the system, let's have a brief introduction of Vision Zero. Okay, next slide, please. So Vision Zero is actually a policy that was introduced in Sweden in the 1990s, and it made its way to New York City in 2014 with the intention of implementing safer streets. Now, one of the mantras throughout Vision Zero is that traffic deaths and serious injuries are not inevitable, but rather they are preventable through engineering, enforcement, and education. As Kate just mentioned, the Vision Zero map was designed by the Department of Transportation for us people to use in order to monitor the progress. Next slide. Okay, so lastly, there are some important notes to keep in mind while working with the Vision Zero map. So first, Vision Zero has fatality crash data, which is acquired by the Department of Transportation through their fatality database. So the NYPD populates the information into this database, which is maintained by the Department of Transportation. Now, the injury crash data is accessed through forms, which the NYPD maintains. And thirdly, any crashes that occur on highways are going to be excluded from the map. And then lastly, data from 2020 is from January until June. So data from any year will be from January all the way to the latest full month. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you're interested in getting more information about Vision Zero, there are a few links here. So whether you're interested in information regarding New York City, throughout the country, or even the world, please feel free to visit these links. They're very insightful and informative. Next slide, please. Okay, and without further ado, let's dive into the features of the Vision Zero map. Okay, so once you've logged onto Vision Zero, you have your interface. Now the orange dots represent injuries that have occurred, while red dots represent fatalities. And you can actually find this information as well on the legend, which is to the left-hand side of the blue box. Next slide. Okay, in the upper left-hand corner, you can actually toggle between various filters, and I'll provide more details on these filters momentarily. Next slide, please. Okay, so towards the upper center of the screen, under the crashes tab, you'll see a box that says citywide totals. So that's based on the filters that I chose when I first logged on. It shows that there were 95 fatalities and 18,586 injuries as of June 30th of this year. Next slide, please. Okay. Also on the bottom left-hand corner, you can actually compare the amount of collisions based on their time of day, and they're split into 3-hour intervals. Next slide, please. And then on the top right-hand corner, you have the plus and minus icons, which allow you to zoom in and out of the map, and this feature will become useful soon. Okay, and then lastly, the arrows on the bottom of the screen where you have kind of a black gray strip tab. So those arrows pointing in opposite directions actually allow you to navigate from one year to the next. And just as a side note, the years that are currently available are from 2009 all the way to 2020. Next slide. Okay, and on that note, let's head into filtering and get into more details. Okay, so there are 3 key points to keep in mind when filtering. So I wanted to keep in mind that you could narrow down my analysis to traffic crashes that involve pedestrians, bicycles, or cars. Also, you could focus on injuries or fatalities. And the last main filter is between monthly and yearly. Next slide, please. Okay, cool. And then just as a side note, if you've set your filter to monthly, so you keep, first of all, if you keep the traffic mode into all and you set your filter to injury followed by monthly, you could see that there were 29 fatalities and about 3485 injuries in June of 2020. Next slide. Okay, and then without further ado, let's explore some hotspots. Okay, so the main hotspot that myself, Ameen, and Onedeige will be focusing on today is the intersection of Essex Street and Delancey Street. And so to scroll to that intersection, what I first had to do was use the plus symbol to zoom in on the map. And then once I did that, I noticed there was a larger orange dot on this intersection. So once I clicked on it, a pop-up window came up, which told me that as of June 30th of this year, there were a total of 10 injuries on the intersection of Essex and Delancey Streets. Okay. Next slide, please. So once that was done, I asked myself, based on the yearly filter, can I select a range of months from 2019 to bring up these injury and fatality metrics? So for example, I thought, can I bring up metrics from January through June of last year? Because that's what we just did for 2020, right? It shows from January all the way till the end of June, because that was the last time the map was updated. Next slide, please. And then I also had to keep in mind, as I just mentioned, that the data is only available from January to the latest full month. Next slide, please. So bearing that in mind, unfortunately, we are currently unable to select a range of dates from previous years to analyze. But instead of dwelling on what we can't do, let me show you what we can do. So for 2019, went back to the same intersection on Essex and Delancey Streets, and we saw that the total number of injuries was 13. So that's 13 from January all the way to the end of December. Now, what you might also notice is that in the earlier slides, the citywide totals box, they show the numbers of fatalities and injuries. Whereas once we navigate it to a previous year, they now show a percent change. And that's when I asked myself, why? Okay, and this is because the percent change comparisons are calculated as a mean from a set range of dates prior to Vision Zero, and they're compared to the current year you have displayed on your map. So in the previous slide, as I showed, there were percent changes for the year of 2019, and it was compared to the mean values of fatalities and injuries calculated from the years 2009 to 2013. Okay. And also to bear in mind, again, those percent changes, they're only available for full calendar years after Vision Zero is implemented. So they're only available from 2014 to 2019. Next slide, please. Okay. And then lastly, I thought, well, does the intersection I chose have fewer or more problems than I expected? And to be blunt, I was very shocked by the results. I figured since Essex and Delancey Streets, in the village have a lot of foot traffic, vehicle traffic, booming tourism, I figured there would have been more incidents that occurred at this intersection, but I am grateful that there weren't any more incidents. Next slide. And then just to leave you some final thoughts, as a reminder, the Vision Zero map is not updated in real time. So the Department of Transportation powers this tool with a private data set that it receives monthly from the NYPD because they're required to process the source data. But fear not, there are tools out there that people have created for us to use so we can view the data in real time. Next slide, please. Okay, so on that note, I would like to introduce Ameen, who will be discussing Crashmapper and will be providing a more detailed analysis. So take it away, Ameen.
Ameen, you're muted.
Thank you, Gabby. Hi guys, my name is Ameen Alhubaishi. I'm presenting today about NYC Crashmapper. So can you go next? So this is the interface of the tools or the website, which you have to go to the crashmapper.org. So let's talk about the Crashmapper. So it was created by Transl in 2004, amendment by CHEKPEDS, which is non-profit organization that effective for president safety. The data is coming from NYC open data portal as soon as the data become available. So it become like daily, or when the data be available, they update it. And the data for the crashing is coming from August 2011 until today. The data will be handling and memorializing from NYC Open Data Portal, which is NYBD, and also NYBD crashing data band-aid. Next. So let's talking about the feature of the crashing. So you see in here, in the middle, you see that the map we have in yellow spot, hot spot, and orange and red. So red is meaning I was killed or fatality. The orange is meaning about this injured, and the yellow it was not there is any car injury or in that crashing. If you go to the right side, there is the area which you can filter. So you have filter by data rank, so you can choose the year or the month. If you compare the Crashmapper to Vision Zero, Vision Zero didn't give you these kind of tools that you can filter in by data rank. Is it give you like monthly, which is the last month, or yearly, which is beginning of the year, January 2020. But in the Crashmapper, you can do behind. You can go to the August 2011. You can choose a date range, for example, in between 2013 to 2014. But it's definitely more way to analyze and see the data in the website. And down, you can see like the league and at explained to before, what is the spot in the map. Next. So now we have also other way to filter like boundary. So now we see it as citywide, but also you can do it as borough or community board or the other. You have also in the bottom, you have the factors, which is you see it is for the action or crashing. It was like because the driver was non-attention for street or failure of the right way. So you can see a lot of factors if you go through it. Also, you can see the total crash and injury. So for example, between May 2020 until in May 2020, it was 1,877 total crash. And you can just see like more detail about how many crash injury for cycling or pad or motor. And there was 2,532 total injury. Next. Then also you can do filtering by crash type, and also by what the type of the car. It was a car, it was a bus, truck. And also you can see the total fatality. So for example, in May, the total is 11. One other tool that we have in the crashing map that we didn't have it in Vision Zero, it is you can download the data So you can access the data or you can share it. So if you want to do like which wallet, or you want to deal with the data with other program or coding, so you can download the form of the data and you can use it. Okay, next. So let's using this filtering tool. So let's comparing the crash in that ring, like that ring. So for we get an example now, it's going to take between January to June from 2019 and also 2020. So I've seen here when making the filters from January 2019 to June 2019, you're going to see you have total crash is 21,759. If you want to see it with how it was in the same period, but in 2020, they said it was 14,151. So you can compare in like 2 times from different ring by the filter, but we cannot do that in Vision Zero. Next. So what do you think is different? Like you say, like was 21,000 crashing in 2019, but was like 14,000 in 2020. So what reason make it less in this year? Maybe like COVID or something else was different? I think we have to go like in the deep to find out what reason. So as we're using Vision Zero, we're using intersection to see what the crashing or happen in that area. So I'm gonna use the same intersection, same from Vision Zero. So if we see it, you see like from exit and velocity, use it 4 crash and 1 injury. There is no big kill. And also when you click on the orange spot, you can get more detail about that area. So when you click, you see like the total crash is 4, what is the location, how many was cycling injury, or was cycling kill, and if you go down, you're gonna find more detail. So if you say now, I say like, do I accept it like more or less what I accept? It's depend about what I see it in Vision Zero was like was 10 injury, but see it that is 4. So we can go to the second slide and you can compare. We're gonna see it if it was the same or the difference between Vision Zero or Crashmapper. So you're gonna see. So you see it in Vision Zero, you can see the same location, the same time, and problem is they didn't tell you how many crashes had it, but they told you the total of the injury, which is 10. However, in NYC crashing mapper, you get more detail. You're gonna tell you the number of crash, the number of injury, and also you can get like more detail. It's seen like here, like you can get you can see like summary pictures for that area by using Vision Zero. But if you want to go more detail, you can see it in NYC Crashmapper. Next. So I'm wondering, like in that area, if there is anything I can find, if the community was concerned about that hotspot, if there was complaining or any more like data to understand what's happening there or how we can fix it, how we can reduce the amount of the crash. So I think maybe we can use the data, 311 data. And I think I'm gonna go now to my friend Onedeige to continue with that. Thank you very much.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Onedeige. I'm a BetaNYC apprentice, a new BetaNYC apprentice, and I'm going to be walking you through Boardstat 311 crash-related complaints. Okay, so Boardstat is basically, it's a 311 open data tool. It's a tool that demystifies NYC 311 service request data, and it was created by the BetaNYC Civic Innovation Lab in collaboration with MBPO, the Manhattan Borough President's Office. It's a tool that basically demystifies NYC 301 service request data, and it's used to discover location-specific issues and trends within the boundaries of each district, and also how these requests are assigned to different agencies. It's designed by community boards for community boards, and it's accessible by the public and city council and different borough presidents, etc. Next slide. So here we are. This is just like an overview of what the tool offers. You can filter by borough. You can filter by community board. You can select different date ranges for when you want to check for what data you want to check. You can also see the different complaint types and descriptors and how many and the counts for each of these within a particular location. Here I just focused like entirely on Manhattan just to give you like a broad overview. And you also have this really cool chart that gives you the count for the top 10 complaint types. You can also see the counts for the different addresses that have been reported, where complaints have been reported. So you can actually like go through these, and as you filter down through complaint types, dates, community board, and descriptors, you can actually get filtered down to certain addresses and figure out what's going on in different types of locations. And we also have this navigation tool on the left-hand side in the pink, where you can access all these other tools that we're going to be going through shortly. Okay, so let's start our demo. So the first thing we're going to do is select our borough. Today we're going to be looking at Manhattan because that's where we've been focusing on for the last two data tools that we've been using. And so we just click on Manhattan, and now we select our community board. Now the area that they have been focusing on, where the crash sites that they've been focusing on, is actually located in Manhattan Community Board 3. So we select our community board, and we can then select our date range. So the date range that we want to be looking at, there's a mistake there. It should be January 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020, but it's been corrected in the following slides. But we're focusing on that date range because that's what we've been focusing on previously. And as you can see, it's going to give us, some detailed information here. So next we're going to explore the map. This is on page 4 along the navigation pane, and we want to focus particularly on illegal parking, and specifically on the blocked bike lanes. So if we, as you can see on the map, we have 2 areas of clustering that we see over there, where all those little bubbles are together. These 2 locations are mainly East 12th Street, East 13th Street, as well as Clinton Street. So the largest area, that's like the Clinton Street area, and we're gonna be coming back. We're gonna be focusing in that general area for now. So do we think that there are any blocked bike lane complaints at Delancey and Essex, since that's the area that we have been looking at on Vision Zero and Crashmapper previously? So we're trying to figure out if, are there any complaints that were reported through 311. So here we use the same map, and what we do is we just scroll into that intersection. And as we can see where the arrow is pointing, we're pointing at that intersection, Essex and Delancey. There's actually no 311 complaints of these types reported for that time frame. As you can see, the time frame has been corrected January 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020. But there were none there. So what about other complaint types at this location? Next slide. What about other complaint types? So we might not have specifically illegal parking or blocked bike lanes, but maybe there are other complaint types. But as you can see here, once we select complaint type all, descriptor all on the left navigation pane, we see that on that same intersection, we actually don't have any 311 data for that location. But you can see the difference on how the map looks. Now, we're gonna go back to, I had mentioned earlier that there was a clustering on around Clinton Street area on the original map, in this map. So there was this clustering on the Clinton Street area, actually the other cluster at the bottom. So we're actually going to be focusing on one of these locations. And we're going to be comparing it to Crashmapper, one of the data tools that we used before. Since we didn't have any data for Delancey and Essex, we're going to be looking at Clinton. Yes, that area right there, since we have some complaint types there. So we wanted to compare, okay, are there any specifically blocked bike lanes at that, blocked bike lane complaints at that location? And we did find 2 specifically on that location. So then we checked Crashmapper, okay, were there any crashes at that location as well? And upon checking, we see that yes, between January 1st and June 30th, we have 4 crashes on that intersection where 5 motorists and 1 cyclist were injured. So there you can actually see a correlation between the data between, you know, blocked bike lane, cyclist injury. So that's one way that you can kind of use both tools in tandem. So thinking about this question, and you can feel free to use the chat to, you know, answer this. What other complaint types can you use, or do you think we can use to like check against collision sites? Just thinking in general, like what other situations could we look for on this platform that could have a potential crash or collision taking place? Anybody has any ideas? No? Okay, so some of them, some of the complaint types we could check for are like green taxi complaints, damaged trees, maybe, you know, trees fall into like the street or broken branches, stuff like that. Taxi or car for hire complaints, those are good to look at, as well as traffic complaints and double parking complaints. Those are just something you can use to, in this particular instance, looking at crash and collision sites. Okay, so we want to look at comparing this information that we've been looking at to the same time in 2019. The question you would want to ask is like, okay, is it going to be like around the same number of complaints? Is it going to be, you know, kind of equal? Is it going to be more? Is it going to be less? And so we're going to take a look at that by going to view trends on page 6. So you just navigate to page 6 and you click on view trends, and this pops up, and then you can just where I have those boxes, you can, you know, select your date, select your complaint types and descriptors, and you just select your, it's going to pull up the 2 years and do a comparison. You don't have to do anything. It just automatically pulls everything. And as you can see here, we see that blocked bike lane complaints have actually dropped significantly. We see that in January, it was about the same, but then as the year moved forward, everything dropped significantly, and this can be attributed to the city shutting down for COVID-19, and we didn't have that much traffic, and so not much people traversing the streets, so not many, we didn't have like a cause. Nobody was out there to file complaints, basically. And as you can see, between the month of April and June, we barely had anything. So what do you think this means? Basically, we can skip that one. Yes, so basically the data is created by the people, and so it's based on who participates and who doesn't. So if it's not reported through 311, it won't be available to on Boardstat or in the 311 open data portal. So it might not necessarily be. You will find like a little bit of a disconnect between the crash site portals and the Boardstat portal, and that's why we need to increase access and equity around NYC open data. And we want the 311 is a spotlight for seeing what people in the community wants to improve. So now we can move on to questions. And actually, I'll leave it to Kate to just do a review of what we've all discussed this morning so far.
Yeah, awesome. Great work, everyone. That was informative. So in review, we've checked out what we can. We checked out an intersection with the New York City data viz map, and from the DOT with Gabby. We checked out how we can further analyze that intersection and learn more about the crashes and collisions that take place, get more data using Crashmapper with Ameen. And then Onedeige took us through a sort of more reflective exercise of trying to see what we might begin to associate with the collision. So she asked about, are there people making complaints about blocked bike lanes? Could maybe blocked bike lanes or something that are causing collisions? And started to sort of say, what 311 requests or complaints might be associated with this, and can we paint a bigger picture of collisions in the city? So now we all want to open up the floor to you, and the four of us, as well as our colleagues Emily, I see here, and Noel and Z, are here to answer any questions that you have about open data. So you're welcome to come off of mute and put your cameras on for the next 10 minutes and ask questions, or you can put them in the chat. We can also try to come up with some fun questions. Ooh, I like your hat, Z. And Noel's getting, oh, I forgot, I need to put my hat on. I only have a necklace, shucks. But so yeah, ask questions, come on, and off the video or just post them in the chat. Noel and Z, do you have any questions?
No, I just want to say great work. That was awesome. I love the formatting.
And if there aren't any questions, we'll just hang around and we'll be here. And Z, what's your favorite data set?
Well, I said
open data set.
So I'm going to say probably my next favorite data set currently is there's a tree planting data set that shows you all the trees in your park, instead of like the tree census data that shows you trees on like the block primarily. So I'm interested in that data set because there's a lot of fallen trees in some parts.
Yeah, is it updated regularly?
I think it's updated daily, but it's part of, like, I guess, either the state or the park's database. So hopefully it is updated a lot, but
So it's
probably
trees planted, maybe, or if a tree falls, is it somebody's job to go and document that?
probably. I have not seen like the validity of the data set yet, but there are trees that are in my park, but I have no trees in my park have fallen over yet, but I'm pretty sure like the larger parks might have.
I wonder if any trees caused traffic collisions this past week. I know I was in the, I definitely had to avoid a lot of foliage in the bike lanes that I was driving in or biking in the other day.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes,
Louis,
mosquitoes at the top there, well, top in my house. Thank you. This is, I'm looking forward to more of these webinars. And you did a great job. Is it possible to maneuver this for Manhattan and the other boroughs, that people that listen to this and understand the consequences of accidents and how to avoid them and where they occur and its frequency and all that valuable information to decrease insurance premiums for people that do participate in this?
yeah, we're hoping that through this webinar, and we're definitely in future journeys going to be exploring different geographies across the city. We're hoping that you are able to, and we'll send links for the slides and to the demo video, that you can sort of take it back and say, all right, now I want to do this analysis in a location that I choose. And we're happy to help answer questions you have about that. But hopefully this can show you sort of the steps to doing that. And if you have specific questions, you can always reach out.
Okay, no, this is a valuable resource. Thank you.
Great, we're glad to hear that. Any other questions? Noel, share some fun facts about motor vehicles in New York City and safe streets. You did a presentation last year at Vision Zero, right?
At the Vision Zero conference, yeah. Well, there's like a whole bunch of tools that are out there that are quite remarkable for, you know, what they can do. Like How's My Driving is another tool that helps people look up red light and parking violations and speeding violations. That was founded by an amazing developer, Brian Howell. So if you're on Twitter, you can actually just tweet "How's My Driving NY" with a 2-letter state abbreviation, a colon, and then the license plate number, and it will look through open data and see what type of violations that there are on that vehicle. I've been able to, I'm one of the volunteers helping maintain my neighborhood's open streets, and I had a confrontation with a driver who kind of started yelling at me for resetting the barrier, and he was really unhappy that that this barrier was up and preventing him from swiftly driving down the street. He had to get out of his car and move it. And then come to find out, he had over $3,000 in ticket violations for parking and not moving his car for alternate side parking. And so, you know, it was a really interesting piece of information to, if I ever have a conversation with him again, it's just like, the streets are not your personal parking spot. It's a shared space. We all have to use it and we all pay for it. So recognize it as a shared space. He also had many speeding violations in the neighborhood around the elementary school. So, you know, that's an interesting tool, which is now open sourced also as well. So if you're not from New York City, you can, and you have the similar data, you can take it with you. Yeah, what other cool things?
There's cool things about like open street maps and sort of the data that helps us sort of see the infrastructure behind collision data and motor vehicles as well.
Yeah, if you're looking for like street surfacing data, that's actually like, it's a data set that happens to be buried, but it's out there. If you're ever looking for street safety data, so, you know, like I'm a cyclist, and when the street gets milled, it creates a dangerous situation for me as a cyclist in a number of different ways. One is just the uneven pavement and the exposed manhole covers. Two is the fact that like the bike lane and any type of like biking protection infrastructure, whether it's parking protected cars, bike lane, or if it's like Jersey barriers, all of that stuff disappears when a street gets milled. And so there's a data set that's out there, which is the only way to really find out like when these streets are going to be milled is that you have to go look at the permits that are being pulled by the Department of Transportation, because the Department of Transportation is going to give this window that says that this type of activity is going to be done. But then interstitial to that is like permits and activity for milling, permits for paving, permits for painting, and then all of a sudden everything gets closed, and that's when everything is done. So if you're ever interested in building a tool that kind of like backfills when streets are going to be milled for cyclists or people who are in assistive devices, or because people in wheelchairs, they can't cross the street when a street is milled. A number of friends have complained about the fact that they can't get their strollers across when the street is milled. It just becomes physically unable, and they have to have a power assist or someone push them across the street. Yeah, that's an interesting tool.
Yeah.
The other thing is, some people say that overnight parking in Manhattan was one of the largest acts of nonviolent direct action. Up until 1950s, parking in Manhattan overnight was illegal, which is one of the reasons why people played and used the streets for socializing. And then there was an active campaign to legalize overnight parking in Manhattan. And what they did is that they just brought their cars out and parked and took our curbside space. And they just campaigned the city by essentially leaving their vehicles and parking their vehicles. And so the history of parking in Manhattan is a very contentious one. Oh, and the fact, parking actually comes from taking your horse and pulling it up to a tree and tying your horse up to a tree or to a log, and that was called parking, because you parked your horse and
In the park.
And that got extended to cars as parking. So.
Oh, so there's always been a history of trees and collisions. Okay.
So we didn't need the tree now anymore because you have car.
We don't need trees anymore because we have cars.
If we didn't have the tree, yeah, but if we didn't have the tree canopy that New York City has through our street trees, the city would be at least 10 to 15 degrees hotter. So
someone needs to drink our CO2.
Yeah.
All right, now that we've officially claimed our space of being bicyclist advocates, a lot of people do need to use cars in the city because there's not alternative transportation options. So shout out to you people, and we hope one day our city can be a much more pedestrian-friendly, inhostile environment for everybody. And we hope you learned something. Thank you for coming with us on our first open data journey. If you want to recommend a topic for next time, please do. You can reach me at kate@beta.nyc with your request. And you can also, let me see, I need to see what other, I'm going to be sharing a few different resources with everyone who registered and shared their email address. One of them is our radars. If you have any data or assistance requests that you would like to make and you are a community-driven or nonprofit organization or a government or elected official office, you are able to use this resource as you like, and it is something that our fellows and apprentices work on with Z and Emily in the lab. And so they, will churn out maps, reports, letters to help support folks using who want to use data to help them make decisions or guide policies. And yeah, I will email these slides. The video recording of this webinar will be shared on YouTube, and in the future we hope to have a collection of these demos so more people can see how we've been using data to explore different aspects of the city and different issues. Thank you so much, Gabby, Onedeige, and Ameen. You all rock in putting that together. And any final words from you?
I guess just as thank you, Kate, for having us, and just thank you for everyone for being here today. It was so much fun collaborating with Ameen and Onedeige and learning these new platforms and how to integrate them and seeing their commonalities and their differences. It was fun. It was a fun journey.
Yes,
nice.
It was a fun journey.
All right.
Great job, everybody.
Great job.
Thank you.
That was
Happy
awesome.
Thank you for the help and
journeying.
support.
All right, I'm gonna go say bye to my zebras. Have a great trip back to your homelands, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.